Hey everyone, I am here doing a live question and answer session about the Freedom Series, about the Little School of Big Change. I have lots of questions that have been sent in. I'll take any that show up here. So as you're joining, if you have questions, if you want to talk about the Freedom Series, have any questions about that or the school or anything, feel free to go ahead and post your questions. And I am doing 2 more sessions like this, one on Monday, next Monday, the 23rd, and one on Wednesday, so a week from right now, all at the same time, 1 o'clock Eastern, just to make sure I have an opportunity and an outlet to answer a lot of the questions that have been sent in about change, about the school, about whatever they're about. I want to make sure they're all answered. So let me dive in as people are kind of coming on and joining. Again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll address them here as we chat. And I just want to, look to a few that have been sent in. So on Monday, I did a webinar that I loved. If you're obviously on Facebook, if you're watching this, it's on my page. You can scroll down a little bit and see that webinar. I really loved just the feeling of it and the flow of it. There were a lot of people on, and I just got such a nice feeling, and there were so many comments going on in the chat about how people were really hearing that this is different, and hearing hope, and that's the best. I mean, people really saying, wow, this does sound different than other things that I've heard and tried, and it's really hopeful. And I told the story, I kind of taught in a sense, or shared through a story of a client of mine, and my own story. And I think it's nice to hear. I think we're just designed to hear and learn through story, and to be able to relate to someone else and to see, oh yeah, this is how these habits come about. This is how habits get formed. It's so innocent. It's so natural and human and innocent. And it means nothing about us, that we end up relying on some substance or behavior or thought to feel familiar and to give us some kind of comfort. There's absolutely nothing in that points to any kind of weakness, points to any kind of personality flaw, points to anything personal at all. It's just that we're human beings doing the best we can with what we see in any given moment. And at some point, we stumble upon, we don't feel well, we don't feel like ourselves, and we stumble upon something, and our mind says, ooh, this feels better. And then our mind kind of learns that, and then our mind keeps saying, oh, how about that thing? How about that thing that made you feel better before? And it just sort of goes on like that. And in our innocence, our complete innocence, and our misunderstanding about how our experience works, we take that thinking really seriously, and we take those feelings, which can be very strong, as we all know, those urges and cravings and that pull toward peace of mind. We take that really seriously, and we start to tie it with these things that we do, whatever they might be, and a habit is born, and it is the most human, natural, even healthy thing in the world. If you think about it, there's nothing unhealthy. I mean, habits have very unhealthy consequences, but there's nothing unhealthy about something forming like that. It's that we didn't feel well, and we were searching for a way to feel better. And that's the healthiest thing in the world. When we don't feel well, we're not going to sit there. We're not okay with that. Something deep within us knows that we're meant to be okay, that we're meant to feel well. And so we do look for things, and that's just kind of how it comes about in the peace in this about habits being a solution. That's what that is. It's like they aren't the problem. They end up creating problems in our lives, but they aren't the problem. They're an innocent solution from our thinking in a moment. And it does so much for people to start to see your habit in that way, as it isn't this personality flaw, it isn't this weakness, which also means it isn't something you need to step up and, fight and get all your discipline and willpower together and fight this thing. That doesn't work. It never really works long term for people. And thank God when you start to see it more accurately, see where it really comes from and how we got ourselves here, you don't fight. You see that there's nothing to fight, and it changes in really awesome and actually quite peaceful ways, which is nice. So so let me say, before I jump into some of these questions, say just a word about the Freedom Series. So far, I'm kind of putting out, as I do, like put out these interviews and these conversations, sort of roll them out in the week or two before the school opens. So 3 of the 4, or 4 this time around, 3 of the 4 have been sort of released. And the first one was Patrick, who, I'll say this about all of them, I'm sure, but I love Patrick. I love his story. You know, he's just an everyday guy. He was in college, had all this insecurity, and I love the way he tells his story too. Is he went on a date, which was a rare occurrence for him in those days, and he kind of liked this girl, and she said, "I don't like you in that way," and that's it. And you know, the thing that just strikes me about that is like, who hasn't been there, right? It's the most human, common, normal thing in the world. But what happened within Patrick when that happened is his mind went to work coming up with all this stuff. See, I'm not the dateable type. I'm not the likable type. You know, I'll never find anyone. All of this thing and all of this thinking and feeling kind of became an identity for him that he lived in for, I don't know, a long time, 10, 15 years maybe. And he talks in our conversation about how everything he saw just confirmed that identity, because it was just a thought. It was a thought the whole way through. It was just a thought. But it was a thought that Patrick really clung to because it just looked real to him, you know? And so as he started to question, what if it's not true? What if? That's it. And that, you know, if those of you who are watching or in the school or have heard much from me, you know that I love that question. Just what if? What if this isn't true? What if women could like me? What if I am dateable? And what if I am likable? And all, you know, and it just started to unravel. And from that very question, what if, he started seeing evidence that, like, it's like the universe just gave him evidence to kind of support this new way of seeing things. And I think that's huge for all of us, no matter what we're stuck in or feeling stuck in, is we can always ask, what if? And even if you don't believe it, doesn't matter if you believe it or not, you just ask the question and you just open yourself to a different direction and things start changing. And that was definitely the case for me. When I first heard we're all sitting in the middle of mental health and just thinking our way out of it, thinking over it, as unhealthy as I felt at that time in my life, I knew that was true. And so it just naturally brought in a what if question for me. And just by looking in this direction, instead of I'm messed up and need help, I'm healthy, I just believe my thinking, it's like everything started to just confirm that and show me that in bigger ways. So it's a really, you know, it's just a start, but it's a start that kind of does all the work for you in a sense. So whatever you're struggling with, ask yourself that question and just look in that direction. You don't have to believe anything. You don't have to trust it. You don't have to feel confident in it. Just ask the question and be curious and be open to seeing. And I bet you see some stuff. The other Freedom series with Judy, who, similar to Patrick, you know, to this day, her mind goes to these thoughts and fantasies about suicide. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a big topic for a lot of people. Like, wow, this one really? Like, this is in the same category as this guy who thought he was unattractive? And the thing is, it is. They all are. Because it's the same process. It's the same thing happening. It's two human beings. Thought comes to life within them, and they think that's who they are. And they get caught up in that innocently, as we all do. And in his case, it led to staying away from women. In her case, it led to plans to kill herself. But in both cases, they came to see, oh my gosh, I'm not this painful, heavy stuff. And in both cases, you know, so much turned around for them just by seeing that alone. Just by that, that's it. Like this heaviness, what feels heavy and tight and restrictive, what if that isn't true? What if that is thought? And from there, things just started to unravel in a completely different direction for both of them. And then Christine, I think her video was just released today. I told you I'd say this all the time. I love Christine. I love all of these people. There's something about hearing someone's story and having them so openly share it and so honestly share it, and to see that they've seen, okay, yeah, I can talk about this stuff because it's not me. It doesn't mean anything. It's not true. like there's just I don't know, there's something very endearing about that, because we all, I think, want to do that. We all carry shame to some extent about whatever's going on in our lives, and it looks personal. And to see somebody else step into that and say, hey, yeah, this is what I've been through. This is what goes on in my head or what goes on in my body or whatever it might be. But I'm okay talking about it. It's like it frees all of us a little bit. So Christine's story was nice in that she, the thing I think of, we had a long conversation, but the thing I think of in that is like her just being on this hamster wheel of looking ahead, and then this, and then this, and then this, you know, when I get this promotion, when I pay off the house, whatever it is. And Christine teaches this informally. She works with people who are trying to lose weight, and she shares this, and her business has exploded. Like she has won all these awards, and her career has just gone through the roof by being different, you know, by really kind of helping people see, yeah, on a small basis, on a deep interpersonal little basis of her little group that she works with everybody's like, what do I eat? And what do I eat? And how do I exercise? And she has changed that conversation for them. So these people now aren't even about what do I eat and how do I move and all of that, but it's like, and yet they come back to her, you know, everyone flocks to her and wants to be in her group where she works, because she just takes them to a deeper place, and they've had amazing results. And so for her, it was always this, when I get this, when I get that award, when I get this, and she's surpassed her wildest dreams. And she's seen along the way, yeah, that didn't really do it for me. She's happy and she's content more than she ever thought she would be, but it didn't come with those steps that she thought it was going to be attached to, you know. So I think it's a super relatable story, and she's entertaining, and she has a great accent, really nice, thick Scottish accent. So yeah, so that's a bit about the Freedom Series. And then the next one, tomorrow, I think, or the day after tomorrow, is Andrew. And on the next Q&A, I'll talk about his once you've had a chance to see it. But Andrew's a great story also. So some of the questions I've been asked, I want to talk a little bit about some of the more, I don't know, what I would say kind of meatier questions. And then there's some more like logistical questions. So again, as you're joining, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments and I can address them now. But again, I'm doing a couple more sessions like this, and a lot of people are emailing me questions, and a lot were asked on the webinar. So I have a nice list to start with. So a big theme of question, in a sense, is along the lines of, and always, this isn't new to right now or this conversation, but always a big theme in terms of questions is like, well, how do I anchor in this, is one way that people say it, or how do I come to see this in a way that I talk about it, you know, like, or where the people in the Freedom Series appear to be coming from when they see it, when they talk about this stuff. How does it get deep for me? Because everybody can get it intellectually. Everybody gets the concepts of it. We all know we think. We all know we feel our thinking. We all at least have entertained the idea, if you've been around me at all, that there's something beneath our thinking, and that's what really counts. So we can get all that, but in any given moment, any given day, this stuff comes to life within us. And it just looks like that's all there is. It's like we're just in that, and we forget everything we know, and we're just at the mercy of our feelings or our behaviors or our urges or whatever that is. So how does that deepening happen? I don't know. I maybe should have an answer to that question, but the thing is, I don't know that, like it's a bit of a mystery, and it's also not. So we have we see something in a deeper way. We notice. So earlier I was talking about that what if question. If you say like, what if this is the case? What that does is we start to see in our own way, in our own lives, evidence. We see it differently. When we see like right in front of our faces, oh, now this is proof that I am okay. And that's not because somebody else told you it was proof or there is some proof. It's it appears as proof to you. Like you see it and you know it. And that's what allows change to happen, is a deep personal knowing of something else, a familiarity with something else. So people who meditate, for example, and this is one of the questions about meditation, different practices. Not always. Lots of people meditate like I did and curse it the whole time they're doing it and hate it. And lots of people meditate and absolutely love it. And the people who love it and get a lot from it, and again, I'm not one of them, so I'm not sure, but what I've heard from many of them is it's like there's a home in there that they get familiar with. There's like a place you go. You're sitting in one room, in one space, you're not moving, but there's a place you drop into that feels like home. It feels like a new home during your meditation practice at least. And that place, the more you go back to that, it just becomes more and more familiar and feels more and more like home. And that's what I think has to happen. And that's exactly what we do in everything I share, and in the school is it's like, we look at this home, we look at how things work, we look at what you are, and we also get curious about what you aren't, what you think you are, but you aren't, all that thinking and feeling and experience. And just by virtue of exploring this, looking at it, having discussions with other people about it, looking for evidence in your own life, all of that kind of stuff, it starts to tip the scales. So it's like, I thought I was all this dramatic thinking and problems and worries, and I'd occasionally feel peaceful. But now, because I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at it with a group of other people, and I'm being guided to look at it in a helpful way, oh yeah, now I see, actually, I'm the peace. That was over here. I'm the peace. I'm the calm. I'm what's beneath all that. And this thinking just comes and goes. And so it's the weirdest thing. It's like, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like signal and noise, It's like we're looking at the noise. We're looking at the noise, and it's all we can see until someone says, hey, that's not the place to look. Look over here. And you're like, what do you mean? There is no over here. I don't see anything there. But the more you look, the more you see, and you feel it. You start to feel over here, which is the real you, and the noise starts to fall away. So again, I know that's not an answer that everyone's going to hear, because there is no how-to in it, but it is about continuing to look, stay in this conversation, be open, be in community, and it happens. Like that shift just happens. It absolutely, perfectly, all the time, to some degree, happens. And that's all that's happened for the people in the Freedom Series, is that they've seen something and then they've seen more of it. None of them are sharing. Like we're talking about specific things in their lives that have changed, but see if you guys feel this, because this is so clear to me. It's not about, okay, now Patrick can talk to a girl. It's not about, now Christine doesn't worry about what she eats or her next achievement, or, now Judy doesn't have any suicidal thoughts. It's not about that at all. Not at all. That's the story of it. But what we sense in those people, and why these stories are so effective for us and so touching for us, is that there's a new level of peace. There's freedom. That's why we call them the Freedom Series. There's freedom now. So they get all kinds of stuff, whatever they get. They don't care about it so much anymore. And then life goes in a nicer way, and they're free. And that's what we're always looking toward. So these questions, how do I anchor in it? Like, how do I see it more? I'm waiting for my insight. How do I have my big insight? You stay open, you keep looking, you stay in this conversation, you make it an exploration rather than a place to be. I have to have this insight so I can be free. No, you're free now. But you keep looking toward how the scales tip and looking in the direction that I'll point you in. And it happens. And it might sound magical, and it looks kind of magical to me sometimes, but it also looks reliable, and it makes sense. Given the design of how people work, there's a completely perfect logic to it, and it makes completely perfect sense. So I mentioned meditation. So some of the questions that came in as well were, should I do this? Should I make lists of things that make me happy? Should I meditate? You can do whatever you want to do. I think people are really, really good at like plants kind of grow toward the light, we're really good at doing that. We'll kind of grow toward the light, and we'll find it. And you know, well, for me, I felt like I, for a long time, was growing toward the darkness, but that didn't last forever because I realized it was dark over there. And something said, okay, this is not working. And I said that over and over again, and eventually I found a little bit of light and then ran in that direction. And that's what I think we do. So I don't want to overcomplicate it. And I, you know, I would urge you to not overcomplicate it, but it's just that we have an antenna up and we want to feel good because that's our nature. And without a lot on it, without a lot of thinking and without a lot of agenda and beliefs about what helps and what doesn't, you just open, you know, you just open, and then you get kind of moved toward the light. And so for some people, practices are great things to do. I would never recommend any specific practice to everyone because it just doesn't work that way. There's not going to be one thing that's going to be great for everyone, but you have your own antenna. So you'll do what makes sense to you. And ultimately, whatever freedom we find doesn't come from that practice anyway. You know, ultimately, every single Freedom Series story, meditation session, whatever you do is just a way that like quiets the noise and allows us to see something that's already there, see something that already exists in us, to just see it in a deeper way. So that means it's always available. We didn't need that vehicle to have the quiet mind anyway, to kind of have that insight, stumble upon things all the time, and we do. Let's see. So someone asks, I love this question. How, I just put a bullet here, so I'm not sure how she asked it, but something along the lines of, how do I access this conceptual information, so what we're sharing here, in the middle of a hijack, an emotional hijack? So let's just say you are a drinker or smoker, binge eater, shopper, whatever, and all you can see is that, right? Like your mind is fuzzy and cloudy and you just want your thing. And she's asking, how do I access this information in the middle of that? Well, you don't. That's why it's a question, right? That's why we're like, how the heck is that going to happen? The thing is, like, we're looking pre-concept. We're looking before the conceptual. Like the information, and I know I've said this a million times, the information doesn't do us any good. It's just information. It's just concepts. If it was that strong and that good, then it would just be there for us. But it's beneath conceptual information that we want to look. Like, so the best we do is when we're in that place, we start to recognize, and you know that again, just by continuing to be in this conversation and deepen and look in this direction, you start to know, just like those scales start to shift where you know what you are and what you aren't, you start to know by how you feel, okay, proceed or don't. Take seriously or don't, you know, step back or jump into. So when I start to feel bad, and whatever that looks like, there's something that comes up at some point that says, okay, notice how you're feeling here. And that becomes like this feedback system, you know, that just naturally kind of gets me to step back and let my thinking settle down. Now that is, you know, I get what you're talking about here is the middle of being hijacked by some urge. And that doesn't always happen overnight, but that's the direction we're looking, and that is what starts to happen, absolutely. You start to see it when you're feeling good, and then you start to see it, and then it gets stronger, and you see it when you're not feeling so good. And, you know, you just kind of learn to read these signals, that emotional instrument panel that I talked about in the webinar. You get really good at reading that, and that just takes you all the way through. It's like if you have clear signs and you know how to read them and you trust them, life's really easy. So a huge part of this understanding is just learning what this stuff means, learning what it means when you feel horrible, like seeing what's really going on within us when we're hijacked. And when, you know, when we see that with clarity, see, we don't have clarity around that. And when I mean we, when I say we, I just mean like as a universe, as a world right now, we don't have a lot of clarity about what our feelings mean and what our thoughts mean and why we have our habits. But when we start to see this stuff in a deeper way and have clarity around it, it's really pretty easy. You know, it doesn't mean it's perfect, and it doesn't mean that we don't feel pain at times or anything like that. But the, you know, I don't know, it gets clearer. The noise falls away basically, and it just becomes pretty obvious in a lot of cases. So a couple people have asked questions around, it seems like people in the Little School of Big Change have a lot of eating issues or anxiety or maybe other habits like internet habits or gambling or whatever. But what about fill in the blank? Like what, and usually it's like, what about my habit, which is like a big one, way bigger than the stuff that the Little School of Big Change deals with, what about that? And as you all know, they're all the same at a particular level. The outcomes are different, the way they manifest are different, the consequences are a little bit different, fine. But we all get caught up in feeling addicted or having these habits for the same reasons in the same basic way, and we all operate exactly the same. So when we start to look past the details and the specifics and those things, if you think about it, it's those details and specifics and the severity and all of that stuff that leaves us feeling so isolated. So like, oh, I'm different. I won't fit in there. That can't help me. Anything like that. Notice how that feels. That is not a nice feeling. It's a feeling of hopelessness and I'm different and I'm too far gone. And that feeling is, again, it's showing you, no, your mind is going to a really bad story there, a really worst case scenario. But what if that's not true? Because where we look in the school is not at what you do or what you ate or how much money you spent or any of that. That's just detail. And I get it, again, I don't want everyone to dismiss this. It's important in the logistics of your life, perhaps. But when it comes to finding freedom, it's not important. It's not. When it comes to finding freedom, what's important is seeing how you work on a much deeper level than what you did or what you ate yesterday. So absolutely, those of you in the school know we have people in the school who are struggling with drug addiction, with alcohol, with sexual addiction. So this isn't just for like the easy stuff. And by the way, those of us who had the easy stuff wouldn't consider that the easy stuff either. So it's all, it's all an equal playing field, and we just point to the same place. And if someone feels like they need to do something else, there are people in the school who are struggling with a drug addiction, for example, and they also are on medication, or they also go see a psychiatrist or go to meetings or do whatever they do in addition. Wonderful. Wonderful. Again, follow the light, follow what feels like light to you, so do what makes sense to you. But this is different. Just this understanding in general is different in that we're looking in a different direction than all of those things. And to me, in my humble opinion, it's the most important direction. It's the deepest, most direct direction. So if nothing else, it's a amazing thing to add, to where you're already looking and what you're doing. So just a few logistical, again, I'm going to cut this short in a few minutes here, and not short, but end in a few minutes here, and invite you to share your questions by email. Send me your questions. And again, there are 2 more sessions like this. Show up live to those sessions. Ask your questions if you want. But just a couple logistical things. People are asking, when is the school going to open again? I don't know. It definitely, I hate saying definitely. I would bet a lot of money that it's not going to be before September or October, and it might be later. So it's, I'm looking at this as like a 2-time-a-year sort of thing. People have asked, can I, if this isn't a good time for me, can I get in now and do the stuff later? Absolutely. So I would, if you have questions like that, I would really urge you to watch the last 20 minutes or so of the webinar from Monday, which again is here. It's going to go out in my newsletter on Thursday as well, but it's here on the Facebook page. Because it walks you through and it shows you how everything works. So many people, every time we've had 2 major enrollment periods so far, people get in when they can, because that's when the doors are open, but the content is self-paced. So they might get in even though they were going on vacation, or they were in the middle of, some major thing at work or whatever, and they knew it was going to be a month before they could watch anything. Wonderful. Get in now, because you can't get in any other time, or it's going to be a while. And then just do it when you're ready. That's the beauty in it. We pace you through in a specific order, but it's up to you when you go back to that. And when you choose to do it, and you have access to this for as long as you want it. So there's no major rush, nothing's being taken away. You're not being tested on anything. I mean, you're empowered to do what you want with this information. Most people go through the videos at least 2 or 3 times from what I've heard. I don't know anyone who's just watched them one time. So it's an ongoing thing that you'll access over and over again. Yeah, and then a couple questions. Well, there's always a lot of questions about, but I just want to say a couple words about the community and private support. So a lot of people around this time, when I'm out talking about the school a lot, will say, oh, your school looks really interesting, and I think the community would be great, but I think what I really need is private coaching. Like, I really need you to spend an hour at a time with me, just talking to me, either because they think that their issue's too big for the community to help, or for a group call to help. They think they need personal, private diving into, or they have thinking about sharing in the community. I don't know, I'm not a community person, I'm not a sharing person, I'm not a group call person, and I just really, really want to encourage everyone to be willing to be wrong about that, because this is an amazing opportunity to have support, not only from me, from Amanda, who's in the school helping out, basically pretty much as you want it, because we have a forum where people come on, and Amanda and I are there a ridiculous amount of time, and we are ridiculously fast and thorough at diving into what people put there. And we're always willing to have to be there as much as it takes, and talk, as long as it takes. So it is a forum, yes, it's not a 1-hour conversation, but there's a lot of good that happens in that back and forth. So that's just one avenue, and that's available to you basically 24/7 whenever you want to jump on the forum and put something there, and you're going to hear back from us quickly. But we have these 3 group calls, and we have bonus calls regularly, and I'm always adding more calls as the community grows. But we have these 3 live calls that are still a relatively small group, where it is completely open. And whatever insecurity you might have about sharing tends to go away pretty quickly, and people just share, and everyone is exactly like you, and no one's laughing at you, because they're all there for the same reasons, and there's no judgment, and it's just an opportunity to ask honest questions, or say, hey, help me see this, or this is where I'm still stuck, and have me dive in and support you exactly like I would in a private call, by the way. I don't save anything extra. I mean, this is real coaching, and it's $39 a month. And I am not able to do private coaching the way I have been, just because the demand has been so high. So the school for me, and especially the community, that's the chance. I still offer a very high level 9-month coaching program, but there's not the in-between and the session here and there and that type of stuff. I love to coach people, but I just can't do it like that anymore. So this school is an opportunity for $39 a month to really have that, and to at least try it out and see how it works for you, and you can leave anytime. There's no commitment there. But to me, it's just such an obvious path for so many people. Again, it may not be for everyone. There are people out there that say, no, I'll pay the premium price and want you all to myself, and I want that time, and that's fine if that's you. We can talk about that. But for the bulk of people, this is a way to get a lot of really good support for a really low amount of money, and to open yourself to a community and grow that way and see other people being supported. And that shows us and clears stuff up for people more than we think it does. We kind of come into this thinking it's all about me and my problem and I'm special. And what you start to see through this understanding is you are special, but not in the ways you think you are. Your problems are like everyone else's. You are designed just like everyone else. And hearing other people supported through their stuff helps you more than you can ever imagine until you've experienced it. So the community is the place to be, and it's really one of the few options left anymore from me. Obviously, people do other work in other ways, but it's just such a no-brainer in my mind. And I know it looks like private's better, but I would really just urge everyone to just say, what if? Again, what if I'm wrong? What if this could work and this could be helpful? That'd be wonderful for everybody. What a bargain. What a great setup to be able to be in community with people all over the world and see all of you changing and growing. And, it's a win-win. So those are some of the big questions I was sent this time. Again, they're always coming in. Send them in. we'll meet here a couple more times next Monday and Wednesday at the same time, and I'll keep answering your questions. And in the meantime, enjoy Andrew's Freedom Series story. If you haven't seen the 3 that have been released so far, check them out. They're really, really good. On that page are all the old ones, so there are 8 or so, I think, maybe more, maybe 10 from the previous times that the school is open. They're all amazing stories. So check those out. Look for Andrew's Friday, I think. And yeah, I'd love to see you in the school next week. Let me know what questions you have, and I'll see you soon. Have a great day.